Well, a new study says a majority of Americans are stressed about grocery costs.
As grocery prices continue to rise, it's becoming much more difficult to buy groceries and even harder to not be overwhelmed.
This tiny thing of fruit is $3.40, and that's cheap. Sometimes it can go up to $5.
The prices were pretty high here. There were things that I thought I was going to buy, and I'm like, I can do without it.
Picture this. You're at the grocery store, reaching for a bag of carrots like usual. But then you glance at the price, $6.50. Last week it was $5. You're not hearing things. You haven't even made it past the produce aisle. And somehow, someone far away, maybe a tax decision, a storm in a farming region, or a new import policy, has already pressed the price hike button for you. Unfair. Feels like it, but this is exactly what's happening in the global supply chain today. Prices are shifting not because of what you do, but because of meetings you're not in, storms in places you've never been, and lines of text buried in tariff papers you've never read. Vegetable prices have just seen their sharpest spike since 1947. Canada has quietly pulled back from buying U.S. produce, and businesses are asking one another, how much longer can we absorb these costs before passing them on to our customers? In July 2025, the Producer Price Index PPI for fresh and dry vegetables in the U.S. jumped a stunning 38.9% compared to June, the biggest summer surge since 1947. According to Reuters, vegetables alone made up over 40% of the entire wholesale goods price increase. Retail prices haven't caught up just yet, but both AP and Axios warn that supermarkets are likely to follow soon. If you're used to buying a bag of greens for $5, chances are you'll be paying $6 to $6.50. Before long, a difference big enough to make many folks rethink what goes into the cart. Wholesale hikes make it harder for stores to keep prices steady. It won't just be fresh produce items like prepackaged salads and frozen veggie mixes could see price bumps. 2. For shoppers, especially families watching their spending, this means switching habits, picking loose greens over bagged ones, or frozen veggies instead of fresh. Nearly 39% spike in July 2025. It wasn't only because of import tariffs. Axios and Reuters point to several combined factors: fewer agricultural workers, supply chain hiccups, and extreme weather from droughts to heavy flooding. Experts from Tufts University and ABC News say weather and supply issues are the main drivers. Tariffs played a role, but not the biggest one this time. On top of that, a report from ArcSieve shows tighter restrictions on migrant labor have cost agriculture between 20 to 40% of its workforce. That's a loss of $3 to $7 billion in crops, which, in turn, pushes vegetable prices up by another 5 to 12%. People are starting to feel it directly. That $5 bag of greens from last week, now it's $6 or $6.50. And for families on tighter budgets, that means opting for more frozen or packaged produce, which may be cheaper, but doesn't always have the same freshness or flavor. In July 2025, the PPI across the U.S. rose 0.9% from June, the highest monthly rise in over 3 years. Wholesale food prices went up by another 1.4%, with vegetables seeing the biggest jump at 38.9%, according to AP News. While retail prices haven't jumped yet, all signs point to shoppers feeling the pinch soon, especially for everyday essentials. MarketWatch reports that businesses are still shouldering most of the higher costs, but that can't last forever. Adjustments are coming, particularly for sensitive items like fresh produce, packaged food, and basic household goods. That means familiar items, your regular vegetables, canned salads, and even convenient frozen meals could be a few percent more expensive soon. For example, a bag of greens that used to cost $6 might go up to $6.50 or even $7. For middle and lower income families, that's a meaningful change. And it might mean shifting grocery routines, maybe fewer fresh items, more meal planning, or looking for sales more often.
Since 1933, the government, your government, has been a friend of the farmer.
Farmers.
U.S. farmers.
America's farmers.
And I love them, and I'm never going to do anything to hurt our farmers.
Well, U.S. corn farmers are urging Congress to stop what they say could be a looming catastrophe. It all stems from a new proposal in Mexico banning U.S. imports of genetically modified corn.
Imagine this. You've spent months tending a vegetable patch in your backyard, watering, weeding, caring for every plant. But when you bring your produce to the market, folks turn away just because their tastes have changed. While you're explaining, but this is clean, homegrown stuff, your neighbor quietly sets up a stall, offers a friendlier price, and takes all the customers. That's pretty much what's happening with American corn right now. In a surprising shift, Mexico, the birthplace of corn, officially passed a constitutional change in February 2025 to ban the cultivation of genetically modified corn. At the same time, they still import nearly $5 billion worth of American corn each year, mostly GMO for livestock feed and industrial use. Back in late 2024, a USMCA dispute panel ruled that Mexico's attempt to ban GMO corn for human consumption violated trade rules and wasn't backed by science. Yet even with this ruling, Mexico went ahead with their decision to protect native corn varieties, though they still import about 90% of their corn from the US, most of it genetically modified. That shows their demand remains strong. This ban at home. Import from abroad approach means feed costs for Mexican livestock farmers might edge up. For instance, if a 25-kilogram bag of feed used to cost 10 Canadian dollars, it might now be 11 or 11.5 Canadian dollars. And when costs go up, smaller farmers often have to raise prices at the supermarket just to stay afloat, whether it's shrimp, pork, or chicken. Mexico's move is a bit of a balancing act, protecting local seeds from GMOs while also making a strong play in trade, one that's shaking U.S. corn's dominance just as Canada quietly moves in as a new export partner in the 2024 to 2025 crop year. The United States is set to export a record 2.75 billion bushels of corn, even without China as a top buyer. Mexico alone has ordered 17.2 million tons, about 678 million bushels, making up 36% of total exports, a big share, though still within the usual 5-year range of 77%. But even with solid demand, shipping has become the weak link. About 60% of U.S. corn headed for Mexico travels by rail, and 40% of that comes out of Illinois. That means any hiccups in transportation hit corn-producing states hard. In the first half of 2025, global container shipping dropped by 1% due to new trade policies. Reports have also noted persistent congestion at railways and ports, slowing down deliveries. If deliveries are delayed, the price of animal feed could increase by another 1 to 1.5 Canadian dollars for every 25-kilogram bag. That added cost can slowly show up in everyday products. For example, a carton of 12 eggs that used to cost 3.5 Canadian dollars might rise to 3.9 or even 4.1 Canadian dollars. For many families, that weekly grocery bill starts to creep up. In early 2025, global container shipping volumes dipped by roughly 1%, mostly due to trade tensions and policy changes from the U.S. That may sound small, but in agriculture where exports are crucial, it's enough to cause jams. And corn is right in the thick of it. News outlets have repeatedly highlighted rail and port delays between the United States and Mexico during the years 2024 to 2025. These slowdowns throw a wrench in the ag supply chain, keeping corn from getting to buyers on time. Even as the U.S. aims to hit that 2.75 billion bushel export target, the absence of China means Mexico has become the key customer, but also one more vulnerable to shipping or policy changes.
Because this is a president who doesn't just talk the talk, he walks the walk too, and he's delivering on his promises to bolster our steel and aluminum industries in this country.
Imagine walking into your local supermarket. The case of beer that used to cost $15 now sells for $17. The car you plan to trade in this year suddenly comes with a price tag thousands of dollars higher. And somewhere, a factory worker is nervously wondering whether their shift will be cut. All of this traces back to one seemingly dry number, a 50% import tariff on aluminum. The question is, how much will that number reshape our everyday lives? On June 4th, The United States doubled its aluminum import tariff from 25% to 50%. The impact was immediate. The Midwest Premium, a key measure of aluminum prices, jumped from just 37 cents per pound in March to 62.5 cents by mid-June. Per ton. That's an increase from roughly $720 to more than $1,370, nearly doubling in just a few months. To put that into perspective, a typical car uses 250 to 400 kilograms of aluminum. With the new prices, the cost of each vehicle could rise by $1,200 to $1,800. The beverage industry, where each can of beer or soda requires around 15 grams of aluminum, could see costs rise by 5 to 7 cents per can. That means a 24-pack could climb by an extra $1 or $2. For a family of 4, the additional monthly expense from canned food and drinks alone could be $15 to $20. A significant burden when multiplied across the year. There is, however, one bright spot. Recycled aluminum is exempt from the 50% tariff. In the first quarter of this year, the U.S. imported 202,000 tons of aluminum scrap, a more than 30% increase from the same period last year. Recycling 1 million beer cans saves about 15 tons of primary aluminum. If this trend continues, the recycling sector could generate tens of thousands of new jobs, from scrap collection to factory operations. But it also sparks a scrap race with Europe. As more material flows into the U.S., higher demand may push scrap prices up by $50 to $70 per ton, with part of that cost eventually filtering back into household grocery bills. Companies are already sounding the alarm. Brewer Molson Coors expects its pre-tax profit this year to fall by 12 to 15%, equal to a loss of roughly $250 to $300 million. To offset the hit, the company may raise product prices by 5 to 10% or cut costs, including jobs. In the auto industry, if production costs rise by $1,500 per vehicle and a manufacturer sells 1 million cars annually, that's $1.5 billion in additional expenses. Consumers will shoulder part of it through higher prices, while the rest could trigger lower output, and with it, the loss of tens of thousands of jobs. Meanwhile, the Producer Price Index PPI for July surged to its highest level in 3 years. Experts warn that if the trend continues, consumer inflation could rise by another 1 to 1.5 percentage points by the end of the year. For everyday shoppers, that translates into a $200 grocery basket up $2 or $3. For ordinary households, these aren't just numbers on a chart. They're the feeling of a thinner wallet every time you walk out of the supermarket.
This entire house is built out of wood. I mean, we really do have wood on the floor, wood on the walls, wood on the ceiling. So it's definitely a concern. One bunk of this material, going up tenfold can cause a huge disruption from a price perspective.
The softwood lumber industry is taking a hit because of significant new duties from the United States. Alberta's biggest softwood lumber market, but BC may be hit the hardest.
Imagine this. You've finally decided to fix up the backyard. Maybe lay down some wooden flooring, put up a little gazebo, or just build a shelf for your daughter's room. You've done the math, $60 per bundle of wood. You'll need 10, all set. But when you get to the store, the sign reads $75. You ask the staff, a shrug. New lumber tax. Wood from Canada's gotten expensive. It seems like a small hiccup. But that small change in price is actually part of a much bigger picture. A quiet shakeup that's starting to hit close to home. Canada is pulling back its lumber supply. Big companies like Weyerhaeuser are seeing profits fall. Import taxes are going up. And suddenly, for many American families, the idea of building or renovating a home feels like it's slipping further away. Weyerhaeuser, one of the biggest lumber companies in the United States, just shared its results for the second quarter of 2025. The company made a profit of $87 million. That's almost half of what it earned during the same time last year, which was $173 million. Its revenue stayed fairly steady, coming in between $1.88 and $1.90 billion, actually a little better than what experts had predicted. Still, that big drop in profit points to trouble in the market. Weyerhaeuser also cautioned that its adjusted earnings for the next quarter could fall by another $60 million. These aren't just numbers on a balance sheet. Lumber is closely tied to the housing industry, and when a company like Weyerhaeuser stumbles, it signals that building costs might rise. That means home renovations, new kitchen cabinets, replacing the old front door, laying wooden floors start to feel like bigger decisions for homeowners. In January 2025, new single-family home construction in the U.S. dropped by 8.4%, hitting its lowest point in nearly 3 years. The main culprits? Rising material costs and stubbornly high mortgage interest rates. According to the National Association of Home Builders, NAHB, new import tariffs could raise building costs by another $7,500 to $10,000, and that's just for materials. Investopedia estimates the total increase per home could reach up to $10,900. For families, an additional $10,000 US or more can mean putting building plans on hold, reducing the size of their future home, or needing to borrow a larger amount of money. Even small improvements, like installing wooden floors or adding a new deck, start to strain the household budget. That same bundle of wood that once cost $60, now it is closer to $70 or $75. As we move into the second half of 2025, the U.S. housing construction industry is running into headwinds, rising costs, high interest rates, and increasing import taxes. According to Reuters, this spring was the slowest for the industry since 2019. A full 71% of builders now say the market is clearly cooling off. Canada supplies about 85% of all softwood lumber imported into the U.S. If tariffs climb to around 35%, the cost of building a house could go up by 4 to 10%, depending on the region. NAHB and other sources say the average added cost per new home is now between $9,200 and $10,900 US due to these changes.